Hi, this is Ernest Rolfson, the CEO and founder of Finexio. Welcome to B2B Cash Flow Conversations, the podcast dedicated to sharing insights and innovations in business to business payments, working capital and cash flow management, and fintech entrepreneurship. In each episode, my guest and I tackle questions in the ever evolving world of fintech and payments, an industry that's rapidly evolving and of great interest to investors and businesses alike. Looking forward to having this conversation. Today, I'm here with my friend Sami Peltonen. He is the VP of P2P Product Management at Bossware, and we're excited to be digging into the growth opportunity around AP and procurement automation, as well as thoughts on where payments fits into that. So, very excited to have you here, and I think we're going to have a very good conversation today. Should be fun.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks, Ernest, and pleasure to be here.
That's great. What time is it in your side of the world? By the way, you're calling in
It is 6
overseas.
p.m. at the moment here in snowy Helsinki in Finland.
Nice, nice. What would you be doing right now if you weren't spending the evening with me?
I would probably be doing some of the sort of last skiing for this season. So we are still having a bit of snow, but it's soon all melting away. So that's what I've been doing recently.
Oh, nice. This is cross country skiing.
Correct. Yeah, mostly. Bit of downhill as well, but mostly cross country.
Very cool. Very cool. You can just drive right to that from your front door. Can you walk
right.
out your short drive?
There is a short drive, but we have the trails sort of pretty close, so it's rather convenient.
Perfect. Why don't you, Sami, tell us a little bit about Bossware and the company and your role, and a little bit about yourself and what you're up to.
Sure. So Basware is providing procurement and invoice processing solutions to global corporations around the world. So we are running a cloud service used by millions of end users around the globe, optimizing their procurement and financing processes. My role here is to be responsible for the procure-to-pay product management. So I'm responsible for the e-procurement invoice processing offering globally and working closely with many of our multinational clients.
How did you get involved in this? What was
Yes.
what was the journey? Are you a product guy? Are you a procurement guy? You like
Yeah,
software? How did you get involved here?
that's a great question. So I started my career by programming, so being like a hands-on techie guy. And then at some point, I noticed that I actually want to be sort of closer to business and do product management. And I've been basically in this domain in procurement, finance, payments throughout my career. So a bit more than 20 years actually right now.
And how long have you been at Bossware?
I joined Basware 15 years ago already, so it's been quite a journey.
Nice. I guess just out of the gate, what have been some of the biggest changes that you've seen at Bossware or in the broader, procure to pay industry since that time? You've been kind of seeped in deep in. You've been in the inside, the belly of the beast for years.
Yeah, so certainly lots of changes. I guess perhaps the biggest thing is the transition from sort of old legacy on-prem services to cloud. So it's been obviously a huge change, and I guess now we are seeing sort of another transition. So we are moving from sort of traditional automation to more like AI, machine learning, all of this. So again, another big sort of disruption going on in the domain, which is good. I mean, with these new modern technologies, we are certainly able to provide lots of great value for our customers around the globe.
And so you've spent now just at one company almost 2 decades, working to develop and deliver solutions that streamline, procure to pay. What do you see as some of Bossware's greatest achievements? over the past several years? And what about your own achievements? What are you proud of that you've been able to help get developed here that are probably now affecting the way millions of companies get paid? Anything you can speak to, both the company
Yeah,
and personally?
sure. Great question. So I think I'm certainly most proud about the fact that we've been able to help thousands of global multinationals with the procurement and finance related initiatives. So being able to work closely with those clients and help them to become better on what they do, I think it's been a really sort of a enjoyable journey so far. We are recognized by the industry analysts, and I think increasingly we are perceived to be the innovator in this domain. So we are utilizing some of the latest technologies around machine learning and AI, and collecting all the information from payments and invoice processing and procurement services to our platform, and then innovating on top of that. So being part of that, innovation and ability to deliver, all the time new types of value for our customers, I think it's been a really great experience for myself and certainly for the entire company.
Anything that you've worked on in particular that you feel like has made any breakthroughs in procure to pay?
So I think many things actually. I mean, the way how our customer companies are able to move away from paper in their invoice processes and payment processes, and automate all the transactions, and eventually switch that data from these transactions to something that will provide lots of value for them in order to enabling them to make better decisions and so on and so forth. So I think we've been all the time like a forerunners in this domain, and especially when it comes to automating the downstream invoice payment processes, but then also in providing enjoyable user experience for the procurement end users that need to do the shopping following the company policy. So making that journey enjoyable for the end users, and there we are also leveraging some of the latest technologies like virtual assistants and things like this. So I think it's been impacting the domain quite a bit.
Nice. So let's talk for a minute about 2020. What an interesting year. How did the COVID-19 affect your business and your clients' business in 2020? And I guess what changes have you seen, and do you think those changes are here to stay?
Yes, I mean, certainly really exceptional year from many standpoints. And I think from Basware standpoint, there has been sort of positives and negatives. I mean, obviously because of this, we've been seeing some slowness in the sales cycles in certain occasions, and so on and so forth. But in grand scheme of things, I would still say that this has been positive driver for our business. I mean, obviously, sort of a horrible situation for the entire world. But if I look at from the business standpoint, there has been some drivers that are actually sort of bringing more business to us. Mainly, the companies are eliminating the remaining paper from the processes.
Yeah.
I mean that has been clearly a trend during 2020 because of the pandemics, that those companies who are still using paper for their invoice processing, they've been almost like forced to move away from the paper. And it's obviously really like pragmatic problem that if you're not able to access your offices, you are not able to send those invoices with paper, you are not able to scan the received invoices, so on and so forth. So it's been driving the business by eliminating the remaining paper. But also I would say cash has always been the king for sure, but
Sure.
with the pandemics, it's becoming even more evident that the cash agility is super important. You need to be able to be on top of your cash position all the time. You need to look, which of the suppliers you need to pay fast in order to keep them operational. You need to be able to look with which suppliers you may want to extend payment terms to optimize your own cash positions. So all of this has been driving for cash agility, if you will, and I think things that have been priorities for the CFOs for years already. With pandemics, they have become like top priorities for the entire company and for most of the companies. So everybody is looking to ensure that they are able to manage their cash in an efficient way. So I mean, to answer your question, so lots of change with the pandemics, but also it's eventually good from the standpoint of companies who are able to eliminate the paper and automate more will create some sort of sustainable value when going forward.
Yep. So it's actually not just, according to you, right? Not just about the digitization of process and getting rid of the paper and the manual transactions, but it's put more of a focus on cash flow and cash flow management for the buyers and suppliers.
Absolutely, I think that's been really crucial. So many companies have been in a situation where they've been forced to take bigger steps in ability to forecast how the cash positions are evolving. They have been under the pressure of being able to rapidly pull together AR and AP views, have a real-time perspective on how things will progress, so that they are really able to optimize their payment processes and see to which suppliers they need to pay fast and to see where they need to optimize their own sort of working capital management and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, the cash agility for sure is the sort of a hot topic at the moment.
Do you folks, just for the listeners, do you folks have any cash flow management or working capital products or exploring that right now, just for education purposes, given that this seems pretty critical for the CFOs?
Sure. So the role we are playing here is that, first of all, we are number one company globally for the invoice processing. So we handle all the outgoing money in terms of invoices. So we are able to provide like a really holistic visibility on that side of the things, so the AP side of the things, and then we can integrate that together with the AR to get a holistic visibility on the cash. We also deliver solutions for financing, like especially dynamic discount is a service that I think there has been lots of traction recently, partially because of COVID, but companies want to have like a more dynamic payment terms and better leverage those. So that is something we do deliver as well. So essentially, we want to be like a CFO data hub, having all the incoming invoices as a foundation, and then enriching that with the information from the billing side, the AR side, and providing a holistic visibility over the spend and cash.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is an area we just raised $15 million to go and pursue the supply chain finance opportunity. I think it's something that is more common with these multinational clients that you're working with that are really sophisticated on managing the cash and need to know that. The middle market and smaller companies are not familiar with those kinds of solutions, right? And the banks are not really providing them. And I think the big bet I'm making, the bet you and your company are making, is that the CFOs, they want to do more with their software, right? They want to get more investment return from the software they've already bought and implemented and they're using for payments. And so it seems only natural that financing, working capital, liquidity management solutions are part and parcel of the procure to pay process, right? It seems like a natural extension, no brainer. And what you're saying really seems to be confirming that COVID has actually made that now even more important and more of a focus.
Totally agree with that. I mean, I think increasingly that's a direction that companies are looking for, and it's obviously sort of tightly linked to the efficiency of your invoice process. So you need to be able to automate the invoices so that you can actually use all of that time defined in the payment terms to then decide whether you want to pay early to get some discounts and so on and so forth. So I think these processes, they are really nicely tying together.
Yep. I think two ways we can take this. One, can you share with the listeners, I guess, why this is so important that these types of companies that would be using a procure to pay platform, invoice automation, payables automation, that they, I guess, first of all, do you think or do you agree? Would you agree with the statement that it's so important that they think and consider this as a holistic journey, right? Not just automating the invoice, automating payment, automating working capital. You mentioned data and AI several times, which I want to learn a little bit more about. But do you think it's important that they think of it as a whole? And does that set you up to, I guess, better remove points of friction? Would
Yeah,
love to, love to hear your view there.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's exactly how it is. So we can see, in a similar way than the companies are moving away from the paper invoices, they want to move away, for example, from the paper checks. And we see our customers coming to us asking, how we can help them with the different sort of payments related initiatives. It may be about getting rid of the checks, or it may be about optimizing the cross-border payments, which we see a lot, because we are having a big customer base of multinational companies who need to pay on board across the border. So many companies are looking to optimize the payment processes, and that's an area where Basware, for example, rather than doing that part of the process by ourselves, we want to rely on experts like Finexio, who are extremely good on optimizing the payment part of the process. And I think it's really important when going forward that the accounts payable or the invoice process and then the payment process are tightly, seamlessly linked together, because only then the companies can really have like a full control on when to pay and so on and so forth. They can get better analysis on their payment behavior. They are able to use machine learning and AI to better predict which of the invoices will, for example, be on a risk of getting paid late because they have all the information in the same place. They can use machine learning for stuff like that, predictive analytics. So I think that is where this domain is going to, that the companies want to have a single place where they control the entire invoice and payment process in an integrated way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense here. Do you, this is a more of a prediction aspect, and then I want to pivot, talk about some data too, do you see that, look, you're one of the global leaders in procure to pay, you're doing collaborations with various payments companies. You mentioned Finexio, there's others I'm sure you're working with. Do you think that more P2P and software firms are going to become payments companies themselves and go and build out payments processing, money movement businesses? Do you think that your culture may be more around partnering, but do you think that it's going to be more about partnerships and integrating and bringing in best of breed, or do you see maybe some of your peers building their own? I would love to see your view on what you think is an efficient path for the market forward, or why you think certain paths are likely.
Yeah, that's a really, really interesting question, and it's perhaps bit difficult to see what's going to happen. But I think right now, today, still, I think that these two processes, they need bit different types of expertise, and that's why I think that right now in this domain, it is mostly about sort of integrations and white labeling platforms in a way or another. But eventually, even with the partner model, I think what companies are looking for is seamless, unified, consistent experience for the end users, even though there might be different technologies under the hood, basically. So I think that's where we are right now. But then when going forward, it will be interesting to see how much we will see like actual consolidation here, and companies actually bringing the invoice processing and payments to one same single platform. And if you look at how it typically nowadays works, is that pretty often the companies they process their invoices inside their AP automation solution. Then we are done with that. They transfer those invoices to ERP for the bookkeeping and all of that. And then from ERP, they are sending the invoices forward, and eventually the supplier is receiving the money. But this sort of jump to ERP in the middle is kind of unnecessary in the end. So it would be much more beautiful and streamlined process if you would be able to control all of this from a single place. And still obviously ERP will always need to be updated, and you need to have the GL information there and so on and so forth. But I think in long run we will be able to eliminate that sort of unnecessary step that may slow down things every now and then in certain circumstances, and actually control the entire invoice to payment process from a single place.
Yeah, really helpful views on the market. We're kind of betting on both, right? We're kind of betting that we've got a white label product and a turnkey offering that platforms are putting in market overnight because that's where they are in the development cycle. While we also are running an API fully integrated strategy for companies that want to do it. And I think I'm betting long term, most AP procurement softwares are not going to go build it all themselves, but they do want to control that front end experience and have a great user interface, have some payment rails that they connect to. Because I think, to your point, the ERPs are becoming kind of an anachronism in the space. They're not as required. I mean, you have to do accounting. You have to have the piece there, but I'm seeing more firms and users working more with their AP procurement software suites to make all the decisions about payments. And I think that's where the value is moving. I do think there'll be consolidation. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these more enterprising ERPs start and make some acquisitions themselves, because they're losing the value. The value is shifting away from the accounting software into these other CFO financial back office functions. And turns out you can make a lot more money moving money than you can moving invoices. So that's, I think, where things are kind
Right.
of shifting. So yeah, thanks for that. I guess, I mean, you've mentioned the data, you've mentioned the AI. I mean, are those the trends? I think there's others, but would you think that those are the most important trends in this modern, call it digital transformation, that's affecting the financial back office procurement and AP? Is that the biggest current impact? Is there others maybe, but then you see the AI thing being more important? I'd love to just see how you kind of prioritize that and think about where the impact is. But since you've mentioned a few times, I think you've probably made some really interesting advancements there that is worth probably learning about.
Sure. Yeah, this is one of my favorite topics. So I think AI is perhaps I would say, most important technology at the moment. Everybody has been talking about big data for years, and at the moment, I think almost every company is in a situation where they do have lots of data, like lots and lots of data in their hands. But the problem often is that people have very little time to actually do anything with that data. I mean, if I think about myself in my daily work, I have lots of data, but I'm busy. I'm in the meetings. I need to do emails. I need to do phone calls. So I don't have time to really analyze, all the information I would have available. And that's where AI plays the most important role. So how I see it is that AI is the vehicle to actually bring the information to right place, or to bring the right information to right point in the process where you need to do the decision. So rather than the decision makers having to analyze the information, the AI will be a game changer if and when it will be able to do the analysis sort of in the background and then just bring smart recommendations for the end users. And I think that is really what will be disrupting this domain big time. So smart recommendations, that's how we call them. So the AI is able to tell you what you should do based on the data, and that's a big thing. I mean, that ensures that finally the data can be actually used to deliver improvements, more automation, better decisions when the AI is able to serve the end user in a proper way by providing these smart recommendations. So that's why I believe that it is having a super important role in this domain, and obviously pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, so it's more like, hey, you've got a payment due on Friday. Hey, did you know you could pay that early and capture a discount? Hey, we see that you're paying Acme Corporation. Acme Corporation actually is likely to take a card payment. You might want to pay them that way and get a cash back from that. Or hey, you're paying this international vendor. They could actually get paid in USD and save you on foreign currency exchange costs. I mean, are these some of the use cases you're seeing? I mean, are there others?
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm sort of talking about. So that's how it works. And the beauty of this whole thing is that with the multi-tenant cloud services that we do, you are able to use the community intelligence, the information from all the different clients,
Yep.
obviously in an anonymized way, to provide those recommendations. And there are so many different use cases, and we have been implementing many of these already. And you can see things like which invoices are in the highest risk of getting paid late, so you need to take them to fast lane, and so on and so forth. So there's plenty of applications available already based on AI, but there's still huge potential when going forward.
Right. AI gets thrown around a lot. Who is I mean, one of the potential I don't want to say downsides of AI, but one of the elements of it is you do have to train the machine, right? You have to get it spun up. And we've seen companies actually get criticism around AI. Companies like Palantir, right? Where it's like, is it a software company or is it a professional services company? Because they've got all these engineers that have to train the AI and do consulting around it. So, how are you thinking about that component? And is this something where we're going to have finance teams and procurement teams learning and knowing how to guide the machine? Or is this something really kind of like the proverbial Intel Inside? It's really kind of happening. I mean, is this something you're working on to enable for clients? And how do you see this developing?
Yeah, great question. So I think it is a combination of human and the machine in the end that will do the magic. So first of all, I think many companies, they have been running their invoice and payment processes in some electronic formats for almost like 2 decades already in best cases, even though there's still lots of paper everywhere, but there are companies who've been doing this using digital platforms for 20 years or so. So eventually, if you look at the aggregate data that these platforms have, there starts to be like a really good data asset already. So that helps. We can use all of that historical data from past 20 years to guide the upcoming automation using AI. But then there still has to be human involvement, and how it has to work basically is that the machine cannot always know exactly what to do. So then the machine has to ask help from human, and that's a new way of sort of interaction between the solutions and the end users. So the AI has to ask end users to confirm certain things, and in the end, I also think that pretty often nowadays the end users, even though they in theory would be able to let AI to do the decisions, they still want to be in control. And what it means in practice is that the AI may give you a recommendation or suggestion, but the end user is the one that actually decides still what to do. I think that's where we are with most of the customers that we are working with at the moment, that there's potential to, even in certain cases, even to eliminate the human entirely, but the customer wants to still have the control and confirm decisions before AI will start to execute them. and that's at the same time a great way for the human to educate the machine on what to do. So machines will learn, and then their predictions will become better and better based on this human input, and eventually we will probably see processes that are entirely automated based on AI. But we need to wait for a while before this trust between the human and the machine is sort of building up.
Yep. Yep. So a lot of change coming. A lot of change occurred in 2020. We've already kind of touched on that. I mean, do you see companies embracing more of the change? And does it seem like there has been an acceleration there? And are you um, have you reflected on any of the potential downside for companies that are not embracing the change? I mean, it seems like barriers are coming down. You are talking about some fairly, to some, seems like bleeding edge technology. And you did touch on a critical piece, which is about that they want the control, right? The end users, the corporates, like this new payment automation, invoice decisioning, smart recommendations, but they still are, they are accountants, finance departments. They want to make sure they don't lose sight of what's happening. I mean, is that is that a barrier? Are they going to just have to get over that to embrace the change, or is that, can they have both? I think they can have both, but would love to just
Yeah,
get your views on some of
yeah,
this.
that's really interesting topic, and first of all, I guess pandemics has been a good driver to push everybody to change. Um, Change has been sort of mandatory in a certain extent, and the good part here is that if and when the companies have been under the pressure of optimizing their processes, getting rid of paper, automating more, enabling end users to work from home, all of this. I mean, it's not just a sort of a band-aid solution for the crisis, but actually it is providing sustainable value when going forward. They will be more efficient. They will be able to better control their spend. They will be able to better control their budgets. If they deploy procurement finance softwares, they will be able to pay faster. They will be able to better manage their supplier base and the supplier risk profiling, because they had to do this change now in the pandemics. So so I think that many companies eventually, even though they have probably been in a hurry with doing these changes now, they have noticed that actually it's been a really positive and good move, and providing sort of sustainable value also when going forward. And that's why I also think that if you are not digitizing your processes, when going forward, you are losing many good opportunities that may even impact your competitiveness in the business. I mean, suppliers, they expect that you are paying fast, for example, and you need to be able to better profile your supplier base in order to understand who you are dealing with, and what kind of risk positions there may be in your supplier base. So so I think eventually it is super important to look at these processes and see where there is room for improvement still after the actions done during the pandemics. And there's obviously multiple ways where you can start. You can start from procurement. You can start from invoice automation. You can start from eliminating the paper checks. So you can approach this from multiple different perspectives, but I think it is really crucial to ensure that the end-to-end chain eventually works. It's not only good from the automation standpoint, but more you digitize, more data you will have, and then that data will provide the basis for efficient AI-based automation and predictive analytics and these smart recommendations I mentioned. So that's the way how it eventually drives, better performance and competitiveness in the end.
Yep. Yep. No, that's great. I mean, and I think I love what you touched on there is so much of the change and drive for change there is coming from the supplier demand, from the supplier side too, right? They want to
Yes.
get paid faster. Those were your words. They want more convenient options. They're looking for cost savings, right? They want everything to be better, faster, cheaper, and they're going to choose to do business with companies that make it easy to do business with them. No one wants to be dealing with paper
Yes,
anymore, right? It's bad. It's bad for everybody.
indeed.
Please.
Yeah, I mean that's the case exactly. So if in the past, I guess at least in certain occasions, suppliers were seen as a source for more savings. You need to do this thing for me cheaper and so on and so forth. Now it's a bit perhaps like turning other way around, that you actually need to have a good and deep collaboration with the suppliers and serve them. And I think that dynamics is probably changing a bit right now, and I think that's something that everybody needs to sort of keep an eye on.
No, I mean, look, I think you can get so much more value out of any business relationship you have if you think of it as a relationship, right? If you think of it as a
Indeed.
valued partnership versus just thinking about somebody as your vendor and just beating them up on price or something like that. And I saw this. I grew up in the payments industry and I was working in MasterCard, and some customers and partners are like, well, it's just the same as Visa, right? It's just you could both move money, you both have networks, everyone takes MasterCard, everyone takes Visa. And the reality is, you're going to work with people you like, and people that are innovative, and people that are interesting, and people that can help grow the relationship between you. And I think suppliers, vendors have to realize that and make that investment. But you will get, as you're a buyer, you'll get so much more value out of your relationship if you come and have it more in an open arms. And that's also why here, when we're doing payments, there's so much interest and opportunity in using virtual cards, and that's the hottest fintech payment product, really globally. And what we saw in the early days of the industry, and the incumbents are like just pushing the card, forcing it on the supplier, saying, yeah, you have to pay a fee to take this card, and kind of jamming it down. It created a ton of friction, a ton of complaints, a lot of attrition. Now the industry is still growing very, very quickly, over 20% a year. But I think the dirty secret is the industry is growing probably 35% a year, and attrition is probably 15%. So you're still getting that natural growth, because there's still that push. So what we're doing at Finexio is realizing that every buyer and supplier relationship is unique, and that it's more about not pushing one option and getting the friction. If you can do education, if you can do information, if you can have easy supplier education pages and sign up pages, they feel like they're more valued party in the rapport, and they want to come to electronic. They want to take these payment options, and you can have a better conversation with them. And I'm sure you've seen that same thing with electronic invoicing and acceptance there, right? You don't want to make it friction. You want to have it peaceful and value, and that creates a long term positivity. And that's what I'm excited about in payments, and I've seen great results with our customers from that. But it seems like you're nodding your head that you've seen those same methodologies work from where you sit.
Yeah, totally. And I think you guys have been doing a really fantastic job with that approach. That it has to be convenient for both parties, for the buyers and the suppliers, in order to be able to find the efficiencies. And I think historically, based on my experience, that has been perhaps one of the biggest obstacles with any finance related initiative, that if you are unrealistic on how much you can change the behavior of the other party, supplier in this case, then typically you are not able to get the return for your investment. So it's good to be flexible and aim for having a model where which is sort of convenient for both parties, and sort of natural also for the supplier. So I think this is super important perspective.
So before we wrap up here, I just would love to get your thoughts, more specifically on whether the growth opportunity really exists between AP to P, the automation and the payments, and seeing that those two, payments and procure to pay, really working together to disrupt the broader industry. I mean, do you believe there's a big growth opportunity there? And do you have opinions as to what the benefits may be, or why this could be the case?
Yeah, I think that I would say there are two things or two major drivers I can see. So, first of all, it's about the end-to-end automation. So, you can still gain lots of efficiencies if you are able to properly integrate the invoice process and the payment process. As I mentioned before, if we can, for example, eliminate the ERP between these processes, it will make things much more efficient and streamlined. So the automation from the end-to-end standpoint is one thing that will for sure drive a lot of change. And the other thing is then the data. I mean, if and when these processes are integrated, you are able to collect all the information to a place. And then when you are able to collect that information to single place so that you actually have the end-to-end visibility, then using AI and predictive analytics to help you with that decision making, AI giving those smart recommendations for the end users, that will further take the efficiency to the next level and also help in decision making from many standpoints. So I see a huge growth opportunity by integrating these two processes tightly together.
And just because look, you've collaborated with folks like Finexio, you've been building payment solutions, partnering around payments and AP automation. Do you have specific advice to the broader industry, other procure to pay software companies that are thinking about payments or how to help customers here? I mean, any pitfalls that folks should look out for, or any best practices that you think you can see or advise on, given you're an expert in this?
Yeah, great question. So I think the most important thing is to obviously sort of listen to customers and what they are looking for. I think it's important to get the voice of customer to this discussion and sort of prioritize how to bring these processes closer together based on the customer feedback. There are a few different ways how you can look at it. I mean, as I think I mentioned at the beginning that, we can see some customers looking for ways to eliminate the checks. Some are looking for ways to optimize the cross-border payments. Some are aiming to do something else. So it's important to take that customer view to your plans and then see what is the best way to help the customers to be more efficient by combining these two processes. And it's important to look at this really from the holistic standpoint. So what are all the different value you are able to provide when things are integrated? So not just having a sort of API in between, but I think ideally you would be able to really control the entire end-to-end process from a one place, do the decision in a single place, and also then collecting the information to a place where you can then tap AI to and let the AI to do the magic and provide those smart recommendations. So that's another perspective. But I think the most important thing is to work closely with the customers and see how you can build a roadmap of integrating invoice processing and payments to deliver the biggest value for the customer.
And just before we wrap up here, the podcast name is Paying It Forward. Anyone that you'd like to pay it forward to? Do you have some advice, perhaps, to say folks trying to come up in the product development world, or whether it's some CFO you really want to try to give the right advice to make sure they choose the right solution, or just some good mentorship or advice you might want to give some of our listeners who will be a mix of fintech people, product people, customers that might want to work with our companies. Would love to hear if you have a couple of nuggets of some personal advice or professional advice for some of the folks maybe on the phone, on the podcast with us listening in.
Yeah, sure. So I think I mean, if I look at it from the sort of a product management standpoint, which is close to my heart, I always keep saying that it's so important to know your customers, work closely with the customers, understand what their needs are, and then leverage all the latest technologies to help the customers with the problems they are having. So not just using technologies per se, but it's super important to work closely with those end customers and help them with the initiatives they are doing. But doing so, by leveraging all the latest and greatest technologies. So I think for all of the product management folks, I think that would be my sort of advice, that these AI and the other technologies, they are great servants but bad masters. So it's important to use them in the right way, and eventually, always aiming for providing value for the customer.
Nice. Well, look, Sami, is awesome talking with you, man. As always, a passionate guy, knowledgeable guy, one of the top minds in the space. So hopefully we can promote some more of that here with this podcast. It's always good to talk and collaborate with you. Just on a personal level, it's always just great, and I always come away smarter about the space and talking with you. So good to get some of the insights. Where are we going to meet in person? Is it in Vegas at Money 2020 and some years down the road? What's the most likelihood of us encountering each other?
Yeah, so certainly fingers crossed for that. So whenever we are allowed to travel again, I will certainly book my tickets to US, and it would be really, really great to see you in person there. I mean, I always also sort of appreciate our conversation, so it's super valuable. So hopefully soon. I mean, we will see how this thing goes, but I'm really keeping my fingers crossed that we can travel soon again.
If I come visit to Helsinki, what bar are you taking me to grab some drinks?
Yeah,
Where
there
are
are
we?
plenty of different
What's the
options.
best one? What's the
I
best
think
one for the international traveler?
I would probably take you to a bar called Kalle. It's a place where everybody has to dance on the table. They're playing
Absolutely.
some Finnish traditional music, and everybody has
Perfect.
to dance in the table. So I would love to see you there.
I would love to do my best traditional Finnish folk dance for you.
Yes.
I would actually do some research in advance and make sure I'm not going to embarrass myself with the locals. That'd be how could you can't put me on the spot and not deliver.
I'm
So
sure you would be great.
absolutely, that would be great. Well, look, man, thanks again for your time. Have a good rest of the evening here, and we'll talk again soon. All right.
Thanks, Ernest.
Thanks
Really
again.
appreciate the opportunity to discuss. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to B2B Cash Flow Conversations. This is Ernest Rolfson, the CEO and founder of Finexio. I welcome your questions and comments. You can reach me at podcast@finexio.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Finexio Payments. To subscribe, you can go to finexio.com/podcast. Be sure to check out my new episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Thanks, and talk with you again soon.